In this video, we're going to be looking at converting lengths in standard units. And these are also called imperial units. The true standard unit is, strangely enough, the SI units, which are also known as metric in the United States. But the SI units consist of meters, kilograms, grams, that sort of thing. And is much easier to work in. But in the United States, predominantly the imperial units still prevail. We're one of the very few holdouts left. And I think we just do it out of spite. But that's alright. That's just my opinion. Anyway, some ratios that you want to know in length. There are several different ratios that we'll examine later on in subsequent videos. But in length, you have 1 mile, which is 5,280 feet. You'll notice if you've done this before, heard of it, I do not give it miles to yards, because I don't really want to memorize more than I have to. 1 yard is 3 feet, and again, I don't give the inches in yards. I allow the conversions to happen that way, and 1 foot is 12 inches. Now, I have heard of all sorts of rumors as to how all of these particular measurements got defined, and of course, the foot being, some famous king in England saying, okay, this is going to be the standard. And so he says, okay, measure my foot. Poof, there it is. Is it true? I don't know. If it is, how sad. Because every time you have a change of monarch, poof, the foot gets redefined. So, and also 1 inch. 1 inch, I've heard rumor of it is defined to be the distance between the second and third knuckles in the pointer finger of a man. Again, is that true? I don't know. But either way, they're just oddly defined. And so we're going to work within this system, though, because this is the system that many of us that are viewing my videos are most comfortable in. If you are not in the United States, oh, I'm so sorry. You might want to stay away from this video, go look at one of the others. Okay. Now, the good thing is, the conversion that I'm going to show you here, the method that I use to go from one unit to another, really is independent of the conversion that's actually happening. And so what we're going to do is we're simply going to have a starting point. And that starting point is always going to be on top. And then where you want to go from that starting point will always be on top. And every time you do a conversion in one of these little daisy chains, you'll ask yourself this question again and again. On the bottom goes where you were before. And so I'll give you some examples of this, several examples of this, just so that way you won't kind of run into this and say, "Whoa, what are you talking about?" When you're working with conversions, you have to know these ratios. If you don't know these ratios, it's really going to hurt. If you Google it, there are several different printable sheets out there where it gives conversions from imperial to imperial units, and from metric to metric, and then from imperial to metric. So let's just go ahead and let me demonstrate a couple of examples here and how I convert. Again, this is an I thing. Everybody does this very, very similarly, but we all might tweak it just a bit. I prefer the particular method that you see above only because it's very easy to daisy chain them. And when I get done, I multiply across the top and I divide across the bottom, and it's just easy. So, for this first one, we want to convert 3 miles to feet. And so I want to know how many feet there are in 3 miles. Okay, well, I'm going to start in miles, and so I'm going to start with 3 miles. The very next thing that goes on, though, is a conversion. And the conversion is dependent on where you were and where you want to go. Okay, we want to go from miles to feet, and so we would love for feet to be on top. The question is, do we know how many feet there are in a mile, or miles in feet? So we come back up here and, oh, look, there we go. We've got 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet, so we can go from miles to feet directly. And so using that conversion, I'm going to say, okay, well, in 1 mile, remember where I was previously, that's 1 mile. I was in miles, and therefore that's my previous. Now I want to go to feet, but in 1 mile there are 5,280 feet. If you've dealt with ratios at all, you know that you can use ratios in either order. It doesn't matter who's on top. Okay, in this case, when I get done with this, then all I have to do is multiply across the top. Whenever I cross one of these vertical lines, I'm going to multiply. Whenever I cross the horizontal lines, I'm going to divide. Okay, and so when I put this into my calculator, I'm going to say it's 3 times 5280 divided by 1. And now if you look, this is a consequence of this what's called dimensional analysis, which is a great big fancy name for conversions. And if you notice miles divided by miles, normally we would say, oh, well, any number divided by itself is 1. Okay, in this case, a unit divided by unit, the units go away. They truly do get canceled out. And so you can see that we are left in whatever's left on top, which is feet. Sometimes you may have units that are both on top and below. And so you want to be very cautious of that. But for this case, we'd have 3 times 5,280. And if I grab my handy dandy calculator here, then we can make some pretty quick work of this. And so if I'm going to estimate, by the way, I'm going to estimate this at 3 times 5,000, which is 15,000. So I take 3 times 5280, multiply that out, I get 15,840. 15,840 feet. That feet comes from here. Okay. And so 3 miles is 15,840 feet. Not so bad. For the second one, I'm going to use a daisy chain, and I'm going to do more than just one conversion at a time. I'm actually going to do 2. Because if you look, I need to go from yards to inches, but at the top here, I have 1 yard is in feet, and then I have a foot in inches. So I can't just go directly from 1 foot or 1 yard to so many inches. If you happen to know that conversion, yes, I'm aware that there is a conversion for that. I just don't want to memorize it. Again, the less I have to memorize, the better. And so I just start with my 2.5 yards. And in the very next conversion, I'm going to convert, I'm in yards, and I want to convert to feet. Because I'm going to go from feet to inches. And so there's 1 yard is 3 feet. Okay, and then on the bottom, on the next one, you'll notice I just kept kind of going. Okay, so my yards cancel, and I'm left in feet. Well, if I'm starting in feet, then where I was previously goes on the bottom, and where I want to be goes on the top, but there's 1 foot for every 12 inches. And so now I've got that set up. So I'm going to take 2.5, and you'll notice the feet cancel, and I'm left in inches. So I have 2.5 times 3 times 12, and I'm going to put these in here again. Divided by 1, that's this one here, and divided by 1 again, that's this one here. I stay in the groove. The more you're in a groove, the better off you'll be. Anytime you see, the 4-man luge running down the track, you'll find out, if they get out of the groove, ooh, bad news. Bad things happen. So we'll stay in a groove, just go through the motions. This is 2.5 times 3 times 12, divided by 1, divided by 1. Now you can't see it. Let me open it up for you. Give me just a moment here. Whoop. I remember where I am. And now, if you look, I can put this all in directly. And this is what I'm doing in a calculator off screen that you couldn't see. 2.5 times 3 times 12 divided by 1 divided by 1, and it is exactly that way. It makes it so nice when you have multiple numbers on top and bottom. So very easy. And so we're going to just put in, this is 90. And so my answer is 90 inches. Incidentally, there are 36 inches in 1 yard. Again, it's just something I've worked with over the years. That's perfectly fine if you want to memorize that. I don't bother. I've got enough things to memorize. So kind of keep this in mind how I did this, because the how is what's going to carry over, not so much the numbers themselves.